Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is your girl Adar, and you're listening to the Digital Sisterhood podcast. Now, I know it's been a while. And I know that so many of you have been in withdrawal, so have we, okay? But sometimes things don't go as planned. But what's important is that we pivot, and all that matters right now is that we're here. Right? That's all that matters. So let me tell you what this episode is really about. So I'm really excited about this guest because originally I learned about Halima on TikTok, right? And at the time she used to tell stories about her experiences of a variety of topics. But it wasn't until so many of y'all added us under her comments on TikTok saying, you need to come on the Digital Sisterhood podcast and share your story. Like when I tell you, I had so many notifications, just TikTok randomly. And I just had people adding me under her comments saying, yo, Adar, you need to get this girl on. And you guys already know, I'm under a chokehold by y'all. Whatever you guys say, I do. It's literally our relationship is سمعنا ورضعنا. I hear and obey. And whatever you guys say, I literally put on. But I already had known a little bit about her, and I always found her such an incredible storyteller. So without further ado, this is Halima. Okay, so Halima, who are you? Who's Halima?
Oh my gosh!
Tell me a little bit about your child.
Yeah, question already.
It is a very deep question. It's a very hard question as well.
It is. But I'm ready to answer. My name is Halima, as mentioned, also known as Jedi Limbs. You know, in some circles, some places around the world. I am a graduate student. I'm getting my PhD. I'm from Rochester, New York, originally from St. Louis, Missouri. You know, 315 turned 585.
Shout out to the area.
Shout out to the area 314. Yeah.
So, Halima, tell me about your home dynamic, your upbringing, growing up. Did you always grow up in Rochester, New York?
No, I'm from St. Louis. I'm from, which is like really down in Missouri. It's kind of like in the southern central part of the states. And yeah, I grew up there. My family immigrated, as refugees from Somalia. I was born in St. Louis. Only one out of like all seven of my siblings who was born in the States. They came over with my mom. Dad joined a little bit later when he was able to get his papers sorted through. I was the youngest of 8, so definitely was babied a lot. Definitely a little bit of almost like imposter syndrome within my own house. Like I just want to be like all my older siblings who are so cool out there living their lives. But it was wholesome vibes, alhamdulillah. We grew up in a really close-knit, Islamically bound household. Everything was really centered around the deen, around learning, around education. It was always, we got to get out of the hood, we got to focus on our deen. And that was really the dynamic that kind of shaped my childhood for sure.
One of the cool things I found out about Halima is that Halima is no degular girl, okay? Halima's studying to be a neuroscientist. She is actually studying for her doctorate degree.
In undergrad at a university, I studied biotechnology and molecular biosciences. And so I was a molecular biologist by training, like through undergrad. And then post-undergrad, I worked as a technician at a medical center, which was really molecular based. And so I learned a lot about molecular processes and a lot about physiology, how the cell works, how proteins are functioning, and how muscles are able to, work in tandem with different parts of the body. It was all extremely like molecular level work. And I think something that was really profound, I think because of my Islamic understanding, because I chose to see everything through this Islamic framework and mindset, was when I would read something, I'd read about a process that happens, in the cell, this really conserved process that happens automatically, right? The way that the DNA repairs itself automatically. This protein knows when to go attach to this binding site, and it knows when to, transcribe, and it knows exactly when to do certain things. And I was reading one passage one day, and I distinctly remember my mind feeling like it was blowing. I was like, there's no way you're telling me, DNA is repairing itself millions of times, like all the time, every single day by itself. How is that happening? Like what's driving this system? What's going on? And I remember sitting in the car with my sister because she had picked me up from class that day, my sister Ayan, my oldest sister, and she was like, oh, how was your day today? And I was like, Ayan, can I just tell you something really cool? She was like, what? Tell me. I was like, okay, I'm going to nerd out on you really fast. But I was reading this process that happens about DNA repair. And I was like, I froze in the middle of class because all I could think about was there's no way this is happening unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was making it happen. Like there's no way the cell would be able to like do like I'm learning all these things in a textbook, right? And I'm reading and I'm writing and I'm grasping these concepts of like these actual like analytical things that are happening. But to me, it has almost no meaning unless I attribute it to like how it happened and the creator being able to enforce these, mechanisms to actually happen. So it to me, it just clicked and it never stopped clicking. I chose to go into a grad school. I'm getting my doctorate now. Alhamdulillah, I'm a second year PhD student in pharmacology and physiology. So I was a molecular biologist by training, but sort of transitioning into becoming a neuroscientist. That's the hat that I wear nowadays in my research. But yeah, it doesn't change no matter what discipline you're in, no matter what you're studying, the specific project, the specific cell, the specific protein. I've once I put those glasses on of like seeing all of it through this lens of being created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've never taken those glasses off.
Wow. I'm just mind blown.
She said, "Wow."
I'm just mind blown myself. Like, I don't know that. And then they say that a God doesn't exist. That's the craziest part to me. Like, it doesn't. How can you believe that he doesn't exist and then know that fact? That DNAs are repairing itself at every second. Like how, and nobody knows what it is that's making it do that.
Yeah,
nobody can tell you. I don't know. It just does it. Like
it's mind-blowing. It's like for real mind-blowing. And I think just immersing myself in science in and of itself, I think has really like, because I had the upbringing, it has only like, it's like a circular loop, right? Because I had this Islamic upbringing, I'm more interested to understand like ways that this is like manifested through life and understanding science better. Okay. But then when I start understanding science better, it helps me to appreciate Islam more. And so it just like, it goes in this circle. And to me, like I cannot fathom having one without the other. I can't fathom like processing one without the other in my brain. Like they're one and the same. They truly like feed into each other continuously.
Because some of it's truly unexplainable either.
Yeah.
Like it even in science, there's some things that you just can't, it just is.
There's so many times, like at a seminar even, you'll ask a scientist a question, and he's like, I truly don't know why that process happens. Like, I truly don't know. And yes, some of it is like limited by just what we know now, but there are some questions ultimately I don't think we'll ever be able to answer why certain things happen.
Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. It just reminds me of when Allah says, and he says, let it be, and let it be, and it is. Like, it happened. For him, it's just, it is because he lets it be. And it's like, there's some things you just cannot explain.
You can't.
You know what I'm saying? You cannot. And I think it's so wonderful that you use it. Like, for you, it's like only affirms your faith.
Yes.
Like, the science only affirms what you already know.
Mm-hmm.
SubhanAllah. That's incredible. And a beautiful way to look at science.
Yeah.
Because some people think they contest each other, like they're one or the other. It only affirms the truth.
Yes, yeah.
The things that we go after in life, the career, the aspirations, are oftentimes directly linked to our life, our experiences. In Halima's case, her desire to study neuroscience didn't just come from thin air. Rather, her personal experiences led her there. When Halima was 15 years old, she found out that her father was diagnosed with dementia.
So I didn't find the diagnosis out the same way everyone else did. Everyone kind of assumed this kind of like protect Halima role because she's the baby, you know. Kind of me and my brother Hassan, who's really close in age to I am, but he's a little bit older. So I didn't find out the same way everyone else did. I kind of had to put the pieces together on my own. Like, if y'all have experienced this with your parents, but you know how sometimes you'll ask them something, and they'll say, you'll ask them for permission for something and they'll say yes or no. And then later you'll bring it up and they'll be like, well, when did I say yes? I never said yes to that. You know, like they'll kind of play with your head a little bit. But I realized he had that personality. So I think it was a little bit hard because sometimes he has this joking nature where he'll like kid a lot. So it was a little bit hard to realize when he was being serious and he really didn't remember, or when he was doing the kidding thing. And I just realized that, like, for instance, we'd be talking about, you know, something that happened earlier the day and he has absolutely no recollection, or, you know, and it's not even always like a question and response type of situation. Like he'll just say, oh yeah, earlier I went and, you know, I saw my friend and we went to Tim Hortons, and we're like, but that didn't happen today. You know, that happened like 2 days ago. You didn't see your friend for a couple of days now. Or, he'll just come back from someplace and we'll say, where were you? And he'll be like, you know, and he'll kind of like dance around it, but he like literally couldn't remember where he had just come back from. And it was small things that, like, you know, isolated, you might say, oh, he's just having, you know, one of those days. It kind of slipped his mind, but it was just recurring for weeks and months. And it just was not making any sense that he couldn't remember. I'd come into his room and I'd be like, Baba, do you need anything? You know, did you have lunch already? And he's like, I don't know if I had lunch today, actually, Halima. And I'm like, well, let me go ask Hoya. You know, let me see if she remembers if you had lunch or not today. But that's strange, right? That somebody wouldn't know if they had lunch that day. And so I was honestly questioning it. I was wondering, because everyone seemed to be adjusting so fine, and or maybe they weren't adjusting fine, but they seemed to be reacting to his moments where he was lapsed in memory. They weren't responding the way that I would expect people to respond. Like, I would expect everyone to be like, well, what do you mean, Baba? Like, of course you just had food, you know, we all just ate together. What do you mean you don't remember? But everyone was just kind of going along with it. So I almost felt like, okay, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe, you know, he's just, you know, he is just getting older, and that's the end of the story. But I felt it, and I knew something wasn't wrong. So I eventually asked my older sisters, you know, alhamdulillah, since there's 8 of us, the separation in age is pretty wild. I have 3 oldest sisters who low-key have been second moms like my whole life. We're fully teenagers, but like while I was still in diapers. So yeah, I eventually just talked to them, and I was like, what's going on with Abo? And they let me know what was up.
So the thing about dementia is that it doesn't happen overnight. It's like a gradual, slow thing. One day they're forgetting about their keys. The next day, what they ate for breakfast. And then one day it's something completely drastic, like they forget who you are. Halima recalls a few moments that made it clear that her father was different.
There was one day, I don't remember how old I was. I was still a teenager for sure. And he comes down the stairs, and he had just woke up from a nap, and he's like, oh, where's my abayo? Where's my sister? Where's she at? I need to talk to her. And he's like visibly like walking around the living room, kind of looking, and he's looking for his sister. And his sister, keep in mind, is all the way back in Somalia. Like, he hasn't seen his sister in a really long time. And I start realizing he doesn't realize where he is in this moment. And he fully thinks he's back in Somalia. He thinks it's like 20, 30 years ago. He thinks his sister's in the house. He thinks he's in a completely time and different place. And everything he was saying was not making sense. He was like, yeah, can we go grab this thing, and can we put it here? And it wasn't making any sense. And his main concern was finding his sister, who he hadn't seen in years. And it was terrifying because I'm standing in this living room, right, watching my Abo kind of like freak out. And I'm like, Abo, is everything okay? What's going on? And he's kind of completely disregarding like my existence. Like he noticed me. It wasn't like he couldn't see me or hear me, but his mind completely took him to a totally different place. That was extremely terrifying. And really heartbreaking to realize that his reality, his whole mind was deceiving him in this way, and that he had no real perception of the moment.
I think some of the things that people might struggle with is like seeing your parents at a state where you have to now care for them. I think it can be a really difficult switch, you know, because you always saw them as, you know, they're caring you. And now looking at them like, oh, like I have to, like you start to see them like how they saw you when you were a kid.
So many people talk about, you know, what was the moment you realized your parents were human, you know, because you kind of forget that your parents are even like humans, like that you operate with them as if they're these perfect, you know, beings who won't make mistakes. But I became painfully aware, you know, of the humanness of my dad. The second, you know, I realized he was getting sick, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, my dad is human, and my dad he's getting weak, and he's getting tired, and he's getting sick, and he's deteriorating. And it's so sad to put it that way, but I broke down so many times I can't even count. And I always had to like hide, because I'm not gonna be, you know, the baby in the living room crying because I was sick. So I'd go and hide in the car. And that's still something I do. Sometimes I'll just be thinking, you know, and I'm thinking in class or I'm thinking elsewhere, and my mind kind of goes to thinking about my dad and thinking about his condition. And, you know, your mind jumps to the worst case scenarios. You're like, what if Baba doesn't get to see, you know, my wedding? What if Baba doesn't get to see my kids? What if, you know, your mind goes to all these really dark places, and you think about, you know, how much pain he must be in. And that's something I've been reading a lot about. Like, it's not just that their mind is deceiving them, like they're physically in a lot of pain, and they're exhausted all the time, and it takes like this huge toll on them. And so just thinking about what it's doing to him, my mental health has been all over the place for years, ever since I found out. I don't think I'll ever truly be the same, in all honesty.
There's this thing that people say about you know, about people who are Muslim who might have dementia. And there's this miracle fact that, like, although they might, you know, forget a lot of things, they never forget the Quran.
Yes.
Did you see that? Did you see that miracle or what?
Yes.
So is that real life?
Let me tell you, my Abo will not be able to tell you what day of the week it is, but he will tell you what the third line on the 250th page of the Quran is, okay? He will not forget. Allahu Mubarak. I cannot tell you, it has not ceased to amaze me. Like, he will sit, he is a hafid, alhamdulillah, mashallah, and he hasn't lost it. He still has everything memorized. He reads Quran all the time. He always stands for prayer. He'll be too weak to make it to the kitchen for a cup of water, and he'll say, Halima, can you please go get me a glass of water? And I'm like, of course, Abu. But then 5 minutes later, he's like, okay, but now I'm going to summon whatever I do have, and I'm going to stand for prayer. And I'm like, wow, that's something. Like, his devotion to the Deen and to Islam has been unreal.
Yeah, because the fascinating part of it is that, like, people with dementia might even forget you. Someone who's been their whole lives, right?
Yes.
But they won't even stutter an ayah.
Nope.
They won't even stutter an ayah. They might forget words, you know? They might even, they forget so much, but subhanAllah, the miracle of the fact that they will not forget an ayah, or won't even say it incorrectly, blows my mind. They'll forget their wives, they're everything else, but they won't forget Allah. It's unexplainable. It really is.
It really is. There was one day, I don't remember. I think I was in like the dining room, and my dad comes in, and he starts calling me awowo. And, you know, kind of like in Somali culture, like your dad calls you abo or your mom calls you hoyo, because we have like this reciprocal relationship in the way that we call each other. But he started calling me awowo, meaning that he thought I was his granddaughter, basically. And that was, I was heartbroken, but I couldn't show it. And like tears immediately came to my eyes, but I couldn't show it. And I had to be like, hi, Grandpa. Like, and I just went along with it. And I didn't want to correct him, and I didn't want to tell him he got it wrong. And I didn't want to make him feel like he was losing his mind. So I went along with it. But then, you know, exactly like we're saying, he can still sit at the table, and he can still read, you know, from memorization off the dome. Like, unbelievable. It's wild.
You know what I find? Is it comforting? Is it comforting to know that although he might forget you or anybody else, is that he has never forgotten Allah, and there's a probably high chance that Allah has never forgotten him either.
Oh, absolutely.
Does it give you like a sense of peace? Like, okay. Like,
yes.
You know, despite this dunya, but like, you know, he has a really good relationship with Allah?
I think it's comforting for two reasons. One, because I know, he's, no matter what, he's still working for his akhirah. You know, he's accepted that this dunya is almost betraying him in a way. Like, you know, he's being tested in this way that seems, you know, unbearable at times, but he's still, his mindset is on the akhirah. And I love that for him. And I love that he's collecting these deeds for himself continuously. And the second reason it's comforting is because he has this sense of comfort. Like, he's probably, like, I can't even imagine my dad's mental health. You know, sometimes I've walked into the room and he's like crying to himself in his room, and he tries to, like, you know, wipe his tears, pretend like that didn't happen and that you didn't just walk in on him having like a tough moment. But I can't imagine what he's feeling on a constant basis. And to think, at least he has the Quran, you know, at least he has the deen to be some sort of like solace for him, something that he can turn to help comfort him. And I love that it can be that comforting sense of peace to him. So I'm grateful he has it in his life.
Yeah, I think, you know what it reminds me of? Like, we might have family members that are going through a tough time, who are healthy, okay? Who might be going through a tough time in life. And no matter how much comfort you might try to give them, it's not really enough. Because we know that true comfort comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when that person doesn't know Allah and doesn't seek comfort from Allah, you just know that this aching pain they feel will always persist until they look up. And sometimes it can be really, really difficult, you know, because it's like, I can't comfort you. I can be there for you, but really, like, peace comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his remembrance. But if you're not remembering him, I don't know when you're going to feel relief. And so, like, just hearing the fact that your dad, although might have private moments where he's, you know, like really going through a tough time, he'll always have Allah to turn to. And that you don't have to worry about that because you know Allah takes care of his servants. You know? And it gives, like, me personally, that, like, somebody having a relationship with Allah gives me comfort. Because I know, like, they're always going to be taken care of. You know what I mean? Even if you, to be honest, even when you've forgotten Allah, you're still being taken care of.
Yeah, no,
you know what I'm
for
saying?
real.
But you know, like, you can feel real relief when you remember him. Because Allah says numerous times, like, only do the believers find true rest in his remembrance, right? When they remember him. And so that, like, just the idea of him, like, being able to invoke Allah, and he knows Allah. No matter how much his mind might fail him, his heart is always in ease.
Yeah. Yeah, subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Sometimes when a family member or a person you love deeply is sick, your life is completely changed forever. Who you were before their sickness and who you are after are completely two different people. And everything that you planned and dreamed of, that included them, is completely altered. And it almost feels as though you are sick with them. They're down and you're down too. And although sometimes, like, when you see the person that you love so in pain, and in that case, sometimes you could just think it's them, but there's this invisible layer that happens to the people around them. And it is so tied to it. And it's something that people don't, like, recognize, that, like, the family are also going through it. The people around the person sick is going through it. And it's really hard. It's really, really hard, because how are you supposed to look at the future without them? How are you supposed to understand what's possible with their absence? And I asked Halima what she worried about. Like, what was her biggest fear?
I don't know. I think because my main worry is that he won't get to see me become a doctor. Abo has always been my number one education advocate. Like, when Hoya was like, okay, Halima, so when are we getting married? Abo was like, okay, Halima, so, like, what's the next degree you're getting? Baba always wanted me to be, you know, top of my class, you know, always going for the next thing and being extremely successful. That's what he saw for me, and that's what he's always advocated for me, and that's what that's what I took from him. I took from him, okay, I have it in me to be successful. I can do this, and I can go to the next level, and I can do all these things. And I think the thought of him not being there when I walk the stage and I finally become Dr. Halima OS, it's a little hard to think about. I'm scared he won't be there that day.
Oh, we already started crying?
I
know. not you asking the emotional questions, sis. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Halima, it's really interesting. I have two friends who have family members who have dementia for a couple of years now, and they're their main primary care. It's different for both of them, right? And their parents are like women, right? So it's like different for them too, and they struggle a lot, with also their lives, because they put a big pause on their life to take care of that family member, but they do it because they love them, and they also are mourning, like I something I recognize, they're still mourning who they were before, and I understand, and I know a lot of people aren't going to understand what you mean by that. Mm-hmm. But I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows your dad to show up and show out the day you cross that stage.
Yeah.
And I hope it's a beautiful moment for you.
Yeah, I hope so. Inshallah.
Okay, so the next question I want to ask is about mental health. I know you're a big mental health advocate because you talk about a lot on TikTok.
Yes.
And that's where we found you, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, like, tell me about your like the backstory about why you're such an advocate with mental health. Why mental health? Like, why is that important to you?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's solely because I kind of mentioned I have, sometimes felt this a little bit of imposter syndrome in my own house, which was really interesting to deal with. Feeling like, you didn't quite fit in all the way. My siblings were a little brutal at times. A little bit of bullies would, make fun of me because I was the baby, and then you went to school and you looked different and you weren't one of everybody. I don't know. I think definitely like growing up, I just kind of always felt like a little bit of a misfit, and then as I was growing up and I saw my dad, his health deteriorating, that affected my mental health huge. Like I was increasingly becoming aware of his mortality and the fact that he was approaching what was, this ominous sounding end of life period or whatever. And so there were a lot of different things that, and then you have your own personal struggles, like relationships and things that just school, like stress and like thinking about grades and all these things just started to like pile up. And I noticed it was taking a toll on me. So I've struggled with mental health. What feels like the entirety of my life. And I remember going through like really long depressive episodes, like during high school, and like nobody had a clue and nobody was, in tune with what was going on, but I knew it and I felt it and I felt just sad all the time. And I started to get anxious and I started to, just go through all of these different mental feelings and it didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. And I knew that something had to change, but, unfortunately has never changed to the extent where I could say, yes, I'm free of all mental qualms and I'm free of everything. But yeah, definitely struggled with it, I think, for a very, very, very long time.
How did you manage it? What did you do to deal with that?
Yeah, that's such a tough question. I don't know. I think I tried everything. I tried meditating. I tried journaling. I tried therapy when I got older. I think once I hit college and, the end of my undergrad, moving on to like adulthood of life, I think that's when I started trying therapy. But before that, it was just trying to figure out, okay, what's something small that's going to make me feel better? Okay, is it going to see my friends? Okay, let's go see my friends. Or is it, allowing myself to indulge in extra sweets? I didn't know how to deal with it when I was younger. I felt crummy and sad all the time. So it's really interesting because, well, I feel like a lot of times some people are also lost in this issue, and it's almost like this is really sad to see that Islam and, you know, mental health, helpful techniques are almost kept in two separate circles. You know, it's like, okay, you either use the Quran or you go see a therapist. But no one ever tells you, like, bro, you can do both. Like, you can have this, like, melded healing experience that incorporates your deen, but also, like, addresses some of the root causes of what's going on and why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And so I had to realize this, and I realized that that's what worked for me, was blending these two things together. And there was times when I was, you know, in the middle of having panic attacks. There was one time I was in the car with my sister, and I'm having like this insane panic attack in front of her, and it was weird because I had never had a panic attack in front of anyone before, but it had come out, and I was hyperventilating sitting next to her, and she calms me down, and she asks me to repeat after her, and she tells me, Halima, repeat after me. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? Tell me, because I'm trying to stop myself from breathing so hard. And she goes, okay, say, Allah is the greatest of planners. He will bring to me the greatest of plans. And I was like, okay, Allah is the greatest of planners. He will bring to me the greatest of plans. And she was like, okay, now keep saying it to yourself, but start to really believe it. And I'm like, okay. So I'm repeating it over and over and over. And it started to calm me down in a way I had never been calmed down before. I had been like reading all these like self-help books online. I had like, you know, started doing all these like tricks that I saw on YouTube, these breathing techniques, and they were helping. You know, I'm not going to say they were helping, but it wasn't until I found this like almost like meditation technique, but using it as using Islam as the centering piece of that. It wasn't until I did that I started to feel like actual changes in my life.
Wow. What an epic moment.
I know.
What an epic moment! Like
she changed my life.
No, that was a main character moment. Like, you know, movie. Like, that's actually like a scene.
It was like if the camera was following me at that point, the camera was like, hold up, we following the wrong person. It turned to Juju. It was like, okay, Khadija, repeat that again. Say it directly into the camera.
Oh my God, she was like, that's incredible, because she was instilling like, you know, recognizing that we don't have the power, because that's essentially what anxiety does. It tells us that we feel like we're in control all the time, and it's not the truth. It's not the truth that we're not actually in control of our lives, and that she used that to help you, and that's crazy. Wow. It's interesting. It reminds me of like obviously a technique of saying affirmations, you know, to yourself.
Yes.
And those are so powerful and so important. But there's also a part about it that's like her getting you to say it out loud, so that like your body hears that affirmation and that conviction. You know what I mean? Yeah. That makes it all the difference. It makes all the difference.
Day, I don't think she knows the effect that it had on me. Like, I've repeated it to her before, and I've been like, oh, do you remember that, you know, when you showed me that technique, we were in the car? She's like, yeah, I remember. I'm like, yeah, you know, I do it all the time. But I don't think she really understands. Like, it really changed the way it put me on this path of, like, being determined to figure out, okay, how else can I, like, blend these two ideas of learning more about Islam, but like healing my mental health at the same time, you know?
I think there's a huge misconception, which is that the only form of healing is obviously just what the Quran, like just reading the Quran. And the reality is that Allah provides us all kinds of healing. The Quran being one of the best, if not the best, right? But taking medication is also from Allah. Seeing a therapist is a means of healing that's also from Allah. You know what I'm saying? But people don't recognize all of these things. Like, they think, okay, well, the Quran is the only form of healing. Everything else is man-made and it has nothing to do. That's not true. That's not true. All, like, services that help you is from Allah. You know, He allows us to know the medications that help us. Like, how did we find this out? Like, you think we just out here just pouring into things? Yeah, like, we just figured out how ibuprofen worked. Like, that's not how this works. That's not how it works. And that Allah is in control of everything, and that I wish people saw that way, that they could do Quran and read like Quran on themselves or read Quran and then go to like a doctor and see it both the same way, you know? But, you know, it's like, I think we're starting to come out of that. You know, I think people are starting to become more educated.
Yes.
You know, and I think also too, because like our parents, they lived in Africa, you know, medical attention wasn't like as easy as it is. So I understand why their like perspective is reliant on that, because they were reliant on that, you know, because they didn't have access as much access as we do now. So I get it, but you know, girl, it's all God. It's all
right. It's all God.
It's
okay?
all God.
It's all God.
It's all God. You know what I'm saying? And I hope people know that. Like, I hope people understand it that way, because there are so many incredible professionals. Like, therapists are a Muslim. And they're so good at what they do.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Especially when they understand your belief system. Wow. It's like a game changer. And so I always say, like, you know, like, look for the person for you. Just as we go and look for the best doctor for ourselves, go look for the best, you know, best kind of care.
Yeah.
That you can find, you know, and still read your Quran. And still have those Islamic tradition remedies like honey and black seed oil and all these incredible things that we know that are so amazing. Like, I hear, like, you know what I think about this? I think about the stories of people who would go to Somalia when they were like really ill and they would drink camel's pee.
Oh my God.
And they would do that for 9 months. I heard a story where like an Ader did that. He found out he had terminal cancer. He went to Somalia. He drank camel's pee for 9 months, came back, and then the doctor found none of it in his body.
Stop.
Yeah, and I was like, what?
I know it.
Let me tell you about Somali people, okay? You cannot tell them
Somali
nothing.
people will always find a way. Okay, they will always find a way.
I promise you, the response they're gonna get if you tell them you're gonna die, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy.
They're gonna be like, excuse me.
They're gonna look at you. Are you crazy? Who do you
Not
think
when I have
are?
like 453 medicine, like different
Absolutely,
remedies.
I'ma find it. And we've been knowing, alhamdulillah, Allah has provided a cure. I'ma find that cure.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just,
that's
it's
determination.
So it really is. And it happens like so often. People do it all the time. Pause. I know the story is getting so good, but wait, I have a message for you that you're going to want to hear, okay? Have you been looking for an opportunity to reconnect your faith by building a relationship with the Quran, or even learning Quranic Arabic, or even getting your questions answered about different rulings? Well, let me tell you, the Ribat Academic Institute is an online program that provides traditional Islamic education for women by women. Yes, you heard me right. Islamic education for women by women. Yes, all the courses are taught by female scholars. Allah Mubarak. You have a choice from over 50 courses ranging from Sirah to Tajweed to Fiqh and Hadith. You can even take classes like the 99 Names of Allah, or Purifying the Heart, or the reflections from the Quran and the lessons from the life of the Prophet ﷺ, as well as a Mentorship Matters program on how to guide and support and help others. Ribat's online classes have been reconnecting Muslim women from all around the world with their faith and helping them reclaim their traditionally held leadership roles in Islamic scholarship, mentorship, and community care. All classes are held live online and recordings are posted after class. And the courses, guys, are affordable. They're not expensive at all. They also provide country discounts and scholarships are available. So there's no reason why you shouldn't sign up. So if you're interested, visit Rabata, that's RABATA.info/TDS and register today.
Yeah, and I think especially like being in like a science field, there's always this conversation that happens where it's like, you know, does science and Islam, are they contradictory? Are they not able to like be held in the same sentence? And it's like they absolutely can, actually, because the second I am able to acknowledge that like the scientific findings are because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, boom. Like it's not a question for me. It's not difficult for me to try to reconcile these two different parts of my identity of like being a scientist and you know, adhering to Islam. Like it's one and the same to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's about how you look at science, though. Some people think it's like that faith you can't have belief.
Yeah,
and then see science. And it doesn't make sense to me because I'm like, in the
Quran
it actually talks about how a child is created.
Yeah,
scientifically. So like
scientifically,
and it just, to me, it's like we use science to prove Allah's existence, and we use the mere belief that Allah exists, whether you know it or want to know it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like, no, you can absolutely be intentional about how you see science. It's about choice and perspective. Yeah. So tell me, there's this incredible TikTok video. It's my favorite, where you talked about grief.
Oh,
and that video went viral. And let me tell you, I didn't know that I had any form of grief until I listened to that.
Wow.
And that's the interesting part. I didn't even know I was grieving something until I listened to that hadith. And I think that all of us are grieving something. And I think that's why that the views went crazy.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us are grieving many things. Like, there are so many, like, grief isn't always this, like, huge, devastating, life-shattering experience, which it can be, absolutely is for a lot of people when something traumatic happens. But you can grieve so many small things, like, throughout your day, throughout your life. Like, things accumulate, and it takes a huge toll on you. Like, it just adds and adds and adds up.
So I have a question, though.
Yes.
So what made you like this? You're by the way, if I haven't met, you're a huge TikTok. I would call you TikTok.
Stop.
Like, superstar.
Stop.
My question is, like, and then for you to confidently share hadith on TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
And like share your personal story. So why TikTok? How did TikTok start? Did you think, okay, I'm going to get into it and like go, or did you have like an intention?
No, TikTok was the pandemic hobby of the generation. What do you mean? It came March 20th. Sis was in lockdown, but still had to, work because I was working at the hospital. And I needed some form of entertainment. Like the streets were deserted. Like nobody, it was full on lockdown, ghost town. It was miserable. And
everybody was shaking
all
at home.
I know is everybody is having a grand old time on TikTok. So I said, okay, I've heard this app is for kids, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to download and I'm going to see what's up. Yeah. And so I started as everybody else, just like, doing the little trends, being like funny, like not even really think it was going to go anywhere. But I don't know. It kind of transitioned. I started doing like a little bit more of like Muslim comedy, like different, like, just kind of dipping my toes into a little bit. And I saw it was getting like responses and I was like, wow, okay. So I have like a legitimate, mini following kind of growing.
Mini?
It was mini. Okay. It was mini at first. Okay.
Yeah, it's no longer mini. Like the reason why I even found your page was because people added me saying, Adar, you need to get this on the podcast right now. I said, you know me, and all my listeners know, I have a chokehold. They have a chokehold on me. I'm scared of them. So whatever they tell me, I do. They tell me to interview this person, I'll interview. You think I'm going to beef them? I'm scared of them. I already got water guns.
Your fans are some real ones. Okay, I rock with your fans.
No. They're the scariest group of people. They're actually quite lovely when they're nice. And if they're mad and the episode's not dropped, it's a wrap for me. But we're trying out here, and they're actually the sweetest people ever. They always send us du'as, and I love them so much. Like, I live on their du'as.
Like they came to my comments.
Yeah, they did.
And they were like, sis, why are you not on Digital Podcast? You need to hit up this girl Adar. You need to get on Digital Sisterhood. Like, you need to, like, what's going on? And I got bare comments. I'm like, wow, okay.
I'm good. And guess what? And I messaged you. I said, because I don't want to be too delayed with them. I was like, let me reach out to Halima and see what she thinks. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes.
So, was it intentional when you started sharing like hadiths, like from the 40 hadiths? You start sharing hadiths on TikTok.
It started actually pre the 40 hadiths. I started during Ramadan, and it was like before Ramadan came in, I was already started feeling like the sense of, I don't know if you've ever felt it, like when like something gets like washed over your body, like a new feeling, like you just suddenly are feeling something brand new and something different. And it started descending upon me, like before the days leading up to Ramadan. I was like, I feel like this Ramadan is going to be a really transformative one, and I cannot explain it, but I feel like this Ramadan is going to be really, really good, and is really, really needed. And I think obviously it was influenced because of the pandemic, like because everybody's like having a hard time and grieving, and there's so much happening, but I was like, I really need this Ramadan, and I really feel like it's going to be the thing that I need. So Ramadan comes, and I started doing, I started, I started doing like angry khutbahs in the kitchen at like 1 a.m, but they weren't angry, right? They weren't angry. I was speaking in like my low key, like, you know, sheikh voice. Like I was channeling my inner Mufti Mank, inner, like, you know, big Islamic man, like, you know, the big voice. And it was like, you know, I don't know where it came from, but I was like, I feel this and I'm gonna just go for it. And so I did the first one at like 2 a.m. in the kitchen. And I was like, yes, you know, you're doing great. You're gonna accomplish everything you want to. This Ramadan is gonna heal you in ways you've never been healed before. Just kind of just talking into the camera, and like so many people were like, whoa, this was, you know, this made me feel good for the first time. Hold on, can you do this again? So throughout Ramadan, I just posted like a bunch of different khutbahs of like kind of inspirational, kind of saying, you know, why you should commit yourself to the deen, and why, you know, you should allow yourself to go on this spiritual journey, and that, you know, any progress is good progress when it comes to the deen. You know, any step closer you take is a step closer that you took. It's not a matter of having to do it all at one time. So that's really where it started. And I found so much peace in myself, like being able to do that and share that with a whole community who was about that life too. And then the hadiths came, and the hadiths came, and I was like,
we were casually doing 40 hadith with you on TikTok.
No, casually. Listen, I was like, I already had decided, like, because of Ramadan and what I was going through during Ramadan, and I was, you know, doing like a Quran class on the side, and I was trying to like read on my own, and I was trying to advance myself, you know, religiously, and I had already reset the intention to go through as many hadith as possible and make it as applicable to my life as possible. That was like a mission I made. I was like, okay, I want to read hadith, because everyone says, you know, you're supposed to follow the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like everyone says you're supposed to like make yourself like him and his companions, and make yourself a better Muslim. Like that's what we're supposed to do. But I was like, okay, what's something that I can do, and I can actually just try to do something applicable, do something that's like legitimately going to change the way I think, change the way I act, and really influence me on a personal level. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start reading the 40 hadith. I'm gonna start there, and every time I read one, I'm gonna legitimately think of ways that this is applicable to me and what I can do because I read this hadith, you know. So I reset that intention, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this for the world. I'm gonna just I'm gonna turn on the camera.
Wow.
I'm gonna turn on the camera, and I'm gonna just share what I'm reading to folks. And the response was wild.
Was so wild. And the thing is that you had great understanding of what the hadith was trying to say. So, and speaking of spiritual journey, okay, tell me about your spiritual journey. Were you always religious? Were you always practicing? Were you always, you know, like that? Or is it something that like grew? Or is it something that you're on now? Like, what is your spiritual development been like?
All of the above. Okay, so alhamdulillah, I was raised in a family where Islam was a foothold. It was a strong core part of our family. We prayed together, we fasted together, like it was important to us. Like I saw Hoya and Abu both just be in the living room on their own, you know, in separate corners reading the Quran, or Hoya's in like a muhadir class, like she's actively trying to like learn. That was something that was so vital to both of their lives, even separately, you know, and it wasn't necessarily something that they always did together. But it was something that the family we were kind of just raised on this idea that, yes, Islam is important and it should be a part of your life. But it wasn't necessarily even, you know, it was kind of, like I'm saying, like a little kind of unspoken. It was never, Halima, like, this is what Islam is supposed to mean to you. This is what you're supposed to take from reading this passage, you know, reading this verse of the Quran, reading this, like, this is what it's supposed to mean to you. And I think that piece was missing for me. So I went to the Saturday school and Sunday school, and I did Duksi, had a Quran teacher. Baba was the one who taught us how to like read and write the Quran. He taught us the Hingadis, and my first like bunch of surahs I memorized because Dad was my teacher. But then, you know, obviously then you get a little bit older and you have a different Quran teacher and you're growing up, and it almost became movement based, you know, just doing the actions without stopping to really think and process and internalize and make it mean something to yourself. So I think I was always religious, quote unquote, because I had this really strong, alhamdulillah, like upbringing from my family. But I wasn't necessarily the religious I would say that I feel now, because I was lacking this like really important spiritual connection to the deen and what it meant and what I was supposed to feel, you know, what my heart was supposed to be experiencing when I was practicing or when I was reading. So yes, fast forward, I don't know, high school, I'm still doing the like in the motions, like, yes, this is what it means to be a Muslim. I'm wearing my hijab, things are going well. But of course I have all these other like mental health issues still going on. So it's this really long journey, I think, that kind of gets interwoven with all the other stories of my life. And, you know, alhamdulillah, once I got to, I think, college, you're like really your strong formative years, like when you're in university, is when I started to, you know, I was in the Muslim Students Association and I became president of the Muslim Students Association. And I started this this weekly prophet series at my MSA. And so every week we had our meetings on Wednesday at 12 p.m. I specifically remember. And every week I would pick a different prophet and we would watch a video on the story about that prophet and we would talk about it and we'd have a discussion and we had guided questions and we'd talk through them and we'd be like, okay, so like, what did we learn? What was like, you know, the most challenging part of their story, or what was the most inspiring part of their story? And that period of my life was really nice because it was something that was like, again, like this idea of making it applicable, I think that was missing previously. The part where it was like, okay, this is what you're supposed to feel. This is what you're supposed to be interpreting. This is what, you know.
That's how it applies to your life.
This is how it applies to your life, right?
Yeah.
And then what's wild, subhanAllah, at the end of that semester, there was a non-Muslim girl who was hanging with us because she had something going on, and she was like, you know, I heard about the MSA and I want to come join. I want to just listen in on your meetings. I'm just going to sit in the back, you know, I'm not going to bother anybody. And I'm like, no, yeah, absolutely, come through. We have pizza, like
pizza.
Eat.
You know, we love
listen.
pizza. We love
you are
pizza.
good, right? And she slowly started participating more and more. And subhanAllah, she reverted to Islam, alhamdulillah, by the end of that semester. And that was a wild, very humbling experience to witness that transformation in her. And I think that really strengthened for me the connection that I wanted to feel, and like almost like the reawakening that she got to experience for the first time, you know?
So you feel like you had your own reawakening?
Yes. At the same time that she was having this whole like spiritual revelation.
Yeah. I feel like I had a similar experience too. I feel like I had a reawakening on my own, but then when I came and started to learn, it was like I was being awoken. Like people helped me, like seeing somebody else awoken made me kind of like, whoa, like I just, it was very mind blowing to see hidayah, like guidance happen, like for people everywhere. You know, I think this podcast in general is exploring how hidayah comes in different forms, you know, and how it introduces it to people's lives and how we've understood it. You know what I'm saying? So it's something like because you're not only just learning, but you also love sharing. Right?
Yeah.
And that's different, right? Because people can learn and seek knowledge and they call it a day, but you love to share what you've learned.
Yes.
And you do it so, and I don't mean to break your back, but you do it so beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Right? About how you share it, right? Do you see yourself as like I kind of see you like a da'i, you know?
Oh no.
And I know we don't, and I know it's a very awkward term to say, because when we think of da'iyas, we think of people who are extremely knowledgeable that went and did school, but we're all, in my humble opinion, we're all callers. Every single one of us are callers. Yeah. And some of us are more gifted than the others. Like literally, there's some more gifted than others, but essentially we're all callers to our faith. Whether it be callers to our group of friends, our own families, our neighborhood, our communities, or in your case, TikTok. Like, you know, you being a caller on TikTok, because the way that you explain these concepts are so inviting. Okay, like you can, like, sometimes you'll, like, we'll learn, like I have done so many different classes, okay, and from different people and different ways of teaching. Some things fly over people's heads, like you know, like depending on the teaching style. If it's just like running through a hadith and it's not allowing people to comprehend or have comprehensive conversations about what we just read, then it can just fly over people's heads. But yours is such ingestible content Like, I was enamored by that.
You're
Like,
gassing me.
it's no, I'm so sorry to gas you. But if for those who don't know Halima, if you're listeners, you don't know who Halima is, go to her TikTok. I'm pretty sure it's Jedediah Limbs, right?
Jedi. Okay.
Jedi,
Let me do a little quick explanation.
Yes,
okay, the
do.
Jedi comes from Star Wars because I'm a
yeah.
Star Wars fanatic. Okay, I'm a Jedi.
Not Star
and then
Wars.
lives. No.
Guess
Listen,
what? I went to a Star Wars film and I fell asleep for 2 hours. Asked my friend. I was so shocked. I said, "What is this film?"
you have officially lost points in my brain.
I know. I'm so sorry. I
my
tell the
days.
truth. I had to tell the truth. I'm more of a Buffy the Vampire during that era. Like,
How could you compare that to Star Wars?
do you remember the Space Channel?
How
You
could
guys
you
have
compare that to Star Wars?
You know why? You know why?
I'm
'Cause-
baffled. I'm baffled.
Let me redeem myself. The reason why I say that is because on the Space Channel, there was a channel called the Space Channel. It had Star Wars and Buffy and the Vampire used to come on there. So mans didn't watch Star Wars. I watched because it was all sci-fi. You know,
You know what?
So
I'm not gonna hold you. It's okay. Star Wars not for everybody.
I'm sorry. I was just Team Buffy. Like, that's the era. That's the lane I went. But I respect it.
Okay.
Will I be going to see more Star Wars? Hell no. I never want to fall asleep in the theater in my life. That's the day I said I definitely lost the plot.
No, those are the days I will not only not fall asleep, I will hold myself from going to the restroom. I will hold it for the entire 3 hours of the film
That's
so that I
crazy.
don't have to leave the room.
That's crazy. That's actually crazy. But do you have? Because I know you're listening or you're reading 40 hadith. Is there a hadith right now that you can't stop thinking about that you learned or read recently?
Oof. What can I not stop thinking about? The grief one, because no one will let me forget.
Oh my god!
I've gotten bare comments and messages about this video.
Do you want to like? I don't want you because I know you had said a whole thing. But do you remember what the hadith was that you could say now?
Yes. So on TikTok, I decided to share the hadith, but share it in a way that was really meaningful, and you were able to draw a lot of conclusions and a lot of, implications on a personal level. And this was really important to me because I had reset my intentions to really understand the hadith better and really make it applicable to myself. So what I do is essentially that I share and I have a conversation about what I take from it without, telling you what you should be taking from it. And I kind of leave that to whoever's listening, that inshallah, with ta'ala, it has some impact. It moves the needle maybe even like half a centimeter forward in their life, that they're able to make some sort of change, or it means something in some way to somebody. So that's my intention of sharing it, honestly, to bring comfort to whoever is listening. So the most recent one that I shared is a hadith that was, it's authentic, Sahih Bukhari 6424. It's book 81, hadith number 13. And it was narrated by Abu Huraira, who said that Allah's Messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have nothing to give but paradise as a reward to my believer who, if I cause his dear friend or relative to die, remains patient and hopes for Allah's reward. So this hadith is essentially saying that grief process that you are going through after losing a loved one, after your best friend or relative passes away, that grief that you are feeling, if you are able to remain patient and hope for reward for remaining patient and keep your calm almost, such that it doesn't deter you from your life's plan and life's path, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will literally reward you with paradise for remaining patient through the death of a loved one. And the response was something unimaginable. Like, I have comments almost like essays, explaining that they had been going through this massive, massive grief process. Someone commented that they lost their husband and their best friend within 30 days of each other. And they were experiencing an unexplainable amount of grief. But because they heard this hadith, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises paradise for those who are patient, she, for half a second, started to feel comfort. She, for half a second, started to feel like, okay, maybe this isn't the end. Maybe, there is a way for me to come back from this and a way for me to heal from this. And that was just one story. When I say there are thousands of these stories that have made my heart melt and ache in ways that they have never felt before, it's unreal.
Yeah. The way that because I was reading the comment section too, because there was numerous people sharing testimonies of of how what they were grieving too, and I feel like, and it takes me back to the conversation we just had about your dad and his relationship with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and that he, no matter what he might be going through, that he privately can seek comfort from Allah because he knows him. You know, and because he knows him, he knows what he knows what is being said and what's truthful. And the fact that just that one hadith can kind of hug us like a warm hug. Yes. You know, and remind us it's okay. You're going to see a lot in this life. There's a lot of things. It reminds me even to my mom used to say it to me all the time. If I failed an exam or something really tough happened, she always say to me, Hoya, don't let this one break you. You know?
Oh, that's
even
so sweet.
That's so sweet. When I heard it at the time, I thought it was the most morbid thing I ever heard. She's like, you're basically telling me there's more of this stuff.
She said, so you're going to struggle for the rest of your life, actually.
But she was just telling me, listen, there's so many things like hardship coming your way that is ordained for you to experience. Yeah. Don't let this one take you down. Yeah. You know, like don't do whatever you need to do to get back to what you need to get back to. If that means reading Quran, if that means reading a hadith, do what you need to do to keep trekking, because this life is just about the hardships that are coming away and how we respond. Yeah. Right? But the crazy part is that Allah doesn't leave us just with us to experience hardship, except that He left us with something to help us deal. And it's crazy to me because it's like, imagine Allah has His entire book, you know, and everything that He needs you to know there for you, and you don't know, and then you're still experiencing hardship. How? Like, you know, like, so where do you go? Yeah, like, where do you go for peace? Yeah. Where do you go for aid then? Like it reminds me of this time I had drama class 2 years ago, and it was a class I didn't want to take. Okay, I did not want to take. Imagine me.
I was about to say, Anna, you was in drama class?
I was in drama class in high school, okay? And I loved it because it helped me build my confidence and personality. I mentioned in episode 1. But grown girl Adar, okay? Wearing a jilbab really was it. I really was like, I don't want to do drama class. I don't want to act out something that's going to be weird for me, you know? But I had to take it because if I wanted to graduate, I had to take it. So I remember I took it in the summer, and I took it during Ramadan. Imagine I was fasting, and then I had to act. Okay. Ooh. And so it was just, and I don't know about everyone else, but fasting makes me extremely emotional. Okay. Because I feel like my heart is on my chest. Like it's on my shoulders when I'm fasting. Like you could say anything to me, I'm going to start crying. I don't know. Yeah. Like fasting makes me bare. Like, and subhanAllah, and I understand the beauty of fasting. I really understood it at that drama class because there was an exercise the teacher made us do. She made us sit in a circle, and, I'll never forget this. We're sitting in a circle, and I was the last person at the circle beside her. But she started from the left. I was on her right. And she wanted to do an exercise where she made everyone share a painful experience, a painful truth about their lives. And I'm looking at her like, painful truth? Like, what am I gonna share? Like, even though obviously we experience different difficulties, but I was like, which one am I comfortable with sharing? That's what I was thinking about. Like, which one am I comfortable sharing? But I couldn't name it, you know, like I really name it. But I was the last one. So I was like, okay, I'll figure something out when they get to me. Let me tell you, Halima, when I tell you these people they shared. Okay.
Wow.
And I'll tell you something. It was like, okay, I don't know if anybody else does this, but anytime I walk into a room, I look at everyone and I try to kind of like size them up, not in a way between me and them, but like, oh, what do you think he's like? Maybe he's like I try to come up with who they are. I try to figure out like, okay, so I can be comfortable, right? And so in my head, I had kind of like a data for everybody, okay? Like a weirdo. I had a data for all of them, okay? Thinking I knew who they were, you know, or an idea who they were. And when what they shared blew me out of my mind. I remember one girl. She's a brunette. She's really petite. She's like 5'6", okay? And she was on the first day of class was the teacher's like, oh, I'll let the whole class know. Like the teacher's, like she was a student, like a leader. And she designated herself to be a student leader. So I begged her as the ambitious girl. You know, the ambitious girl that like maybe has too much control issues, but you know, she's trying her best and like wants to be really liked by everybody. This is me trying to come up with a data for this girl, okay? Mm-hmm. And she seemed like she had a perfect life. Right? She dressed really well. She had expensive shoes, you know, really like, well proper. When she opened her mouth, she shared that she was currently living in a mental health facility.
Wow.
Because she tried to kill herself 3 months ago.
Wow.
And so she comes from that facility to this drama class and back. And if she's not back home on time into her, like, the facility, the cops would come. Wow. And I literally, my jaw dropped. Okay, and this is like, I was like, what? Like, you could not see that on her. And I was shocked that she shared that. Okay, I was shocked that she shared that, but she shared it. She said, I am going through a lot. My parents divorced and they used me as a pawn. And that affected my mental health, and there came a time where I had enough and I wanted to end my life. And that is the most painful thing that I'm going through. And I literally looked at her in complete shock because I could not see that.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And I kept saying under my breath, subhanAllah. The next girl, okay? And I won't say her name, but she had a name. And she said that she was taking care of her schizophrenic father. Wow. And that her older siblings had moved away, and it's just her and her dad. And she says that some days it's really tough. And it's really hard for her to get out of bed, and there's nobody else he can rely on. And so she doesn't get to live her life like people her own age because she has to take care of her father by herself. And I'm confused, okay? And this girl, I could not. And then there was another tall young man that looked like he lived maybe in the suburbs of Canada, okay? With fire red hair, with glasses, and he says, I came out of a difficult relationship with a girl that I really loved who used to abuse me. And then he paused and he choked up and he said she used to physically hit me. And I used to take it. And then she would threaten if I had broken up with her that she would end her life. And so I did, and I stayed in that relationship for years. And I'm just confused. Okay, by the way, at this point, I'm confused.
Right.
By the time they got to me, Halima, I was crying.
Oh my
gosh. Sobbing uncontrollably. And I looked at the teacher, I said, I'm sorry, I have to go. Like, I can't do this. I'm fasting. And I don't know. And I literally said, I don't know how any of you all have overcome these things. These things sound so unimaginable. Wow. And I'm so sorry. Like, I just kept saying, I'm so sorry that happened to all of you. And I just literally walked up, okay? And walked out. Like, I was so embarrassed of how much I was crying. It looked like, if you saw me, oh my God, my eyes were, the teacher was shocked at my reaction.
No,
right?
You're an empath. I thought you were feeling it deep.
No, I was fasting. Like, I was fasting. Like, I felt every fiber of my body. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't ignore it. I was like, I cannot believe these people. And I just remember going and sitting near a Starbucks that was outside the drum room. And I kept thinking, how do these people go through without knowing Allah?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
How are they surviving? How are they like knowing it's okay? Like, how? What is comforting them? And I said, even that, I know Allah takes care of them.
Right.
And it literally made me cry. Even I'm crying now because I remember that. I remember thinking, subhanAllah, all of these people, I had this idea about them and they look so okay on the outside, but they're not. They're not okay, and they're going through extreme amounts of pain. And I was I was like so shocked. And I remember that after that, I started to look at people differently. Wallahi. Like, I never come with the assumption that everyone's okay. I always assume everyone's battling something that nobody, like, we don't know about. And that's how we should all, like, assume. Like, that's why we should all be very sensitive about what we say to people.
Yeah.
And how we treat them, because you don't know. You really don't know.
Like, you have no clue.
Like, a girl trekking from here to a mental health facility, you know how cold those places are?
Yeah.
You know how lonely it is? And then to come and pretend you're okay, it's just not easy. It's not easy. And I was so touched by that, truly, after that. And I was like, everyone is experiencing something all the time. And like, that's why it's so important as Muslims. There is so much beauty and comfort there for all of us to know. Yeah. And it sucks that many of us, miss out, because there's so much knowledge we have no idea. And that you would literally baffle, like, wow, I didn't know that. Why do I feel so much peace? Like, why do I have a different outlook? All of these incredible hadiths, especially the 40 hadiths, I've read through them, and they literally change your brain. Like,
Literally
how
change
you see
your brain.
it changes everything. How you view this dunya, how you see your parents, how you see yourself. It's like life-changing hadiths that perfect your character, that allow you to self-soothe. It teaches you even how to self-soothe. How do you comfort yourself when you go through trials?
Right.
What do you need to know right now that's truthful? And the hadith that you shared is that what? That no matter what you go through, if you are patient, what will Allah give you in exchange?
Paradise.
Meaning there's no small amount of pain that does not go accounted for.
Right.
You are not going to just feel something and then and no one's going to care. Allah always cares.
Yeah.
He counts all of it. He counts everything that you feel. Every pain, every cry, every tear. He knows about. He accounts for it. And it's just like, and then what are we doing in return? Like, I just could say so much, but I don't know. I honestly look at people all the time like, you need to know this. Like, I was like, you have to know this. It's going to give you peace. Like, I know I sound crazy.
No, but take this one thing.
No, please just take. And the thing is, I say it from a place of I used to not know Allah at all. And that's why I had this venom. Like, it's like someone who just found out, like, oh my God, like this is the most fierest candy ever tasted. You have to try it. Are you crazy? This is going to change your life. And that's exactly
for real. And it's like even not even strangers, like even like you want to tell everyone you know, like your friends, your sisters, like I have felt like this like intense like need to like tell people like, did you know? Like there is like this easy path that will make you feel better, and you're like making strides for your akhirah. Like there's a hadith that says, when you're in groups of people and you're with a group of friends and you mention Allah's name and you are remembering him and exalting him and calling upon him, the angels are writing this down, and he enjoys when we remember him in groups. And when someone is who's not even associated with us sits down, say this is a sinful person, sits down while we are mentioning Allah's name and remembering him and exalting him, that person too gets forgiven. That person too gets access to paradise. Like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful. And I say this all the time. The way that I phrase it is that he's rooting for us and that he loves us. And he is literally like watching us and hoping for us to make it out. You know what I mean? And rooting for us till the end. That's the way that I choose to see it.
And that's exactly how I choose to see it as well. Like that. Like, how could you not?
Right.
You could commit atrocities, but still the forgiveness of Allah is still open. The doors of mercy are still open.
Still open.
What? Like,
they stay open.
They stay open until the day you die. Like, that's crazy. And it's for him. It's like he wants you so badly for you to win. That he makes it so easy. Everywhere. Even, it reminds me of when the reward system when you read Quran and you struggle, you get 2 rewards for the person that struggles. And I remember when I learned that, when I was memorizing Quran, I was shocked. I was like, so you're telling me as long as I'm struggling reading these verses, Allah adds more. I'm getting more ajr than the hafid over here. Like, to me, that blew. I see something that happened right here with the tajweed that sounds like it should be recited in the haram. I'm getting more ajr reading the way that I'm reading. I remember telling Allah, why do I want to perfect it then? I should just do right.
Stop.
And they said, stop. That's not the goal. But I just was so shocked and baffled by just Allah's generosity. Because if that's not encouragement, it's Allah telling you He encourages you. Like, don't be, it's almost like He's saying, don't be like sad that you're at this place, like that you're struggling this hard. This is the beautiful part, and He knows us so well. He knows that we turn away from the first sight of struggle, Yeah. And so instead of
He knows who we are.
He knows exactly who we are. So instead of He knows how our brains work. So He's like, okay, let me add the reward. Let me add more reward for the person that struggles. Let that be an encouragement that you are just as valuable at this stage, and at the next stage when you're doing so well. you're reading so incredible and at a really incredible level. So it's just like Allah loves us even at struggle and at our best. He loves us in all states.
Yep.
And it's just beautiful to know that. And I just wish people just would give them a chance to receive Allah's mercy and love. And they would just allow it, you know? And it's time to do away with the fear-based.
Right.
You know, like the fear base that we kind of were raised upon. You know, we don't know much about Allah, but we're scared of him. Like that's the one thing we know. One thing is we're afraid of him. And there's some wisdom behind that, but Allah calls himself the especially merciful.
The most merciful, the most compassionate, the most forgiving. Like there is none more forgiving or accepting or merciful than he. Like and that's the part that like gets almost kind of ignored. It's always, like you said, this fear-based way of teaching that, oh, okay, fear hell and fear what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish you with. But you forgot to mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also really merciful, and the second I ask for forgiveness, he's going to grant it to me. Like, where was that part of your speech? Like, why didn't anyone tell me that second half of the story? You know what I mean? And it's a way that really warps a lot of people's thinking. Like they and that's how they practice Islam. So I'm not gonna knock it in any way, but I hear all the time, even on my platform on TikTok, like sometimes I get comments where it's like, okay, well, why aren't you sharing the more, critical hadiths? Why aren't you sharing the hadiths that are more, that tell people what to be wary of, that tell people, what to be scared of, and the fear side of it. And I'm like, well, I chose to make this a soft place. I chose to make this a compassionate place. I chose to make this space one where people felt home and welcome and safe and felt like they wanted to know more, and they felt encouraged to continue learning. Like, I didn't say this was the entire story, but I chose to make this side of it, as nice and as comforting as possible.
And I think it's important, like, for those spaces to exist, because I think we all had the other space so dominant, that it crippled us.
It crippled us.
It crippled us. The anxiety. We almost to the degree where we were like, okay, what's the point? We're all probably gonna end up there because I'm not getting it right. And it's just like, what? You should never give
say
up.
That. Oh
never in your life do you think this religion. And I always say this. This religion is for the person. This religion is about redemption.
Literally.
If it's about anything else.
It is for the imperfect. It is for the struggling. It is for the one who feels weak and scared. It is It is for those who literally are struggling.
I say that all the time, bro. I always say this is not the religion for the perfect. It's
really not.
It's not. It's not this. Not over here. Not over here.
Not in these ends.
This place is for the people that that need it. And no matter where they're, nobody is too far. Nobody's too far.
None.
Nobody is too far. SubhanAllah. Nobody's too far. Nobody's too far. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Last final message.
For the
ummah.
For the whole ummah.
The whole ummah. Just about 80,000. Just about 80,000. This is Adi. It's a neighborhood.
Wallahi, you are worthy. I would tell everyone that you're worthy. You're worthy of being loved. You're worthy of being forgiven. You're worthy of overcoming what you're going through. You're worthy of looking yourself in the mirror and feeling comfortable with who you are. And all of the things that you're worthy of, the greatest who could give it to you is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, what love more would you want than that from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What forgiveness more would you want than that from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And I pray that you're granted it. I pray that you're granted Jannatul Firdaus. I pray that you find, peace within yourself. I pray that you find the comfort. I pray that you build a community for yourself and you feel loved. I want you to feel loved on this dunya and in the akhirah. But yeah, you're worthy. You're always going to be worthy. And there's always room for redemption.
Always. Do you hear that, listeners? There's always room for redemption. But thank you so much, Hanima. You're actually the best. And I'm so honored that you came on this podcast. And
I love you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
No. Thank you to the listeners for letting me know. You get me? The ones who let
Right.
me
For
know
linking, for allowing
yeah.
us to like connect like this, please.
Yeah, this
I got a new
podcast
sister.
This podcast is for them. This is theirs. This place is theirs.
for the
They run this operation. You know what I'm saying? So Jazakallah khair for bringing us together, because I feel so comforted by your story and your perspective, and I came in here a little bit like tired, and I feel energetic now. Like feel like I can go conquer the world like Batman or something. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for speaking life into me and to all of us.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم صدق الله العظيم.
This episode is brought to you by Beautiful Light Studios. Shout out to Muna Sheikh Umar for producing this fantastic episode. You always deliver. Shout out to Sima for the beautiful cover art. Allahumma barik. Again, you always hidden. No, that's not, you know how I feel about you, Sima. And I love to give a shout out to my Patreon members that literally donate to us every month without waiver. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase your mizan, like make this an increasing good deed, one that continues to flow, because we couldn't do this without y'all. You already know. I also want to give an announcement before I exit out of here. Muna and I and a few of us TDS members are going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota on November 22nd to November 30th. We're actually there for a youth conference led by Abu Bakr Siddiq Masjid. If you haven't gotten your tickets, what you doing? Sis, I thought we were friends. I thought we were supposed to link up. You know what I'm saying? And if you're really mad about not having an episode for 3 weeks, you can show up. You know, don't check me. I'm so sorry. I don't actually like violence. None of that. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have a pleasant time, inshallah. So if you're interested in coming to the conference, the tickets are being sold at the masjid. Go get your ticket. Can't wait to meet all of y'all, especially Rare Minnesota. I am so excited to meet all of y'all. And just hug y'all. I'm just so excited. You have no idea. But anyways, let me stop talking. And I will see you guys next week in your ear, in your speaker, telling a good story.